Hi, my name's Rich from Sharing Parenting. Welcome back to our online sessions. Today we will be covering session 8 and exploring the topic of labelling. Please have a pen and paper ready to make notes and answer questions. Or if you have a workbook, you will see the relevant page numbers displayed on the PowerPoint slides. Through this session, we will explore what labels are, their effects on us and our children, and the alternatives we can use instead of labelling. We use labels everywhere in society. It helps us identify what something is. If we go to a supermarket, we look for certain products and we look for the labels to buy the brands that we like. Our children too get familiar with certain brands, especially if it involves chocolates and sweets. They love to find the things that they love. So brands and labels are part of our lives, and we look for things, we recognise things by their label. Labels are a quick way of describing something or someone. We can often use them with our children, and this can be viewed as positive or negative. And there are examples of labels that we may have used ourselves or heard others use. Some examples on the board here, things like clumsy, naughty, cheeky, pretty, clever, and I'm sure there are many more that come to mind. We might use a label when we are cross with our children, but not actually explain what it is they are doing that we don't like. Using this negative label as a criticism may lead to the child feeling hurt or resentful. We can also give labels to ourselves, which can be restrictive and prevent us from achieving things. Please be aware that this topic can be painful at times as we reflect on our own experiences, so please take care of yourself as we complete our first exercise together. Take a minute to think back when you were a child. Did a parent, grandparent, teacher, friend, anyone else have a label for you? Please answer these questions. What labels did you have as a child? How did they make you feel? What was their effect on you? You might find it helpful to pause the video now whilst you reflect and write down your answers. Also, on a separate piece of paper, write down the main label you had as a child, which perhaps has stayed with you. Perhaps it was given very much well-intentioned, but it's been there in the back of your mind, and maybe now if you'd like to write that on a piece of paper and put it to one side, because we're going to come back to this later. Next, please write down the main labels you have used with your children. Some may relate to when you were telling them off. Others you may feel a positive when you want to praise them. Feel free to pause the video again to give yourself time to write down your answers. Our use of labels as parents is often well-intentioned, but what are the effects of these labels? Negative labels, such as "you are stupid," can affect a child's self-esteem and confidence. They may feel like they have to live up to this label and think that they must be stupid because that's what they've been called. What we think are positive labels, such as "you are so clever," can be so hard to live up to that we may be setting the child up to be frightened of failing, i.e., they may think to themselves, "I must never fail." The good news is that we can develop a new way of communicating to our children that describes the behaviour rather than the child. This is about separating the deed from the doer. By describing the behaviour, we are giving our children the information they need to change without damaging their self-esteem. We can reinforce good behaviour, for example, by saying things like, "Thank you for moving your cup." Also, we can talk differently about ourselves by saying things like, "I can do this," rather than, "I'm no good at this." For our next exercise, have a think of how you can replace your children's labels with a description of the behaviour you want to encourage. An example could be, instead of saying, "You are so lazy," you could say, "Now you've watched your programme, let's go and tidy your room." You might like to pause the video now to write next to where you have written your children's labels and replace with behaviour descriptions. This would be a great point to find the piece of paper where you have written a label that you may have been given in childhood. I would like you now to rip up the piece of paper. You really can let go of the label. You can keep anything that is useful, that has helped you from the label, but get rid of everything else. This does not define you. You are free to be yourself. So through this session, we have learnt that labels are restrictive. Children can negatively live up to a label. It is better to encourage positive behaviour. For healthy self-esteem, we can label the behaviour rather than the child. There is a saying, "Keep on telling me what I am, and that's what I'll become." So let us be careful how we describe our children. We won't get it right all the time, but let us all make a conscious effort to label the behaviour and not the child in our daily family lives. Let's now look at the task for the week to help reinforce our learning. Be aware of the labels you use this week with your children. Stop and think before you use a label. Replace one label you use with a description of the behaviour. Start with one child and one label and go from there. Thank you for joining our session on labels today. I hope you found it helpful. Next time in session 9, we will be looking at the importance of encouragement. We hope you can join us then. Take care and see you soon.